Ahi ahi Maria, and good afternoon. It's Brenda here. Welcome back everyone to the final user presentations for ANZREG 2025. Kael Driscoll is now with us from the University of Western Australia. His Leganto presentation unpacks the UWA work in progress on reviewing the role of high demand collections. This is an ongoing project considering whether these collections are still fit for purpose and how to proceed in future. Ngā mihi, Kael, and over to you.
Thanks so much. I'll just share here. Is screen sharing actually working? Can you see my presentation? It's saying paused here.
We can see your presentation. You just need to resume a slideshow.
Okay. Let's go from there. Great. Thank you, everyone. I know there's always a little bit of a gap when you're trying to work from all the way over in WA. My name's Kael Driscoll. Thank you for having me here. I'm Discovery Librarian at the University of Western Australia. And my presentation is called Are We the Baddies? Reviewing the Role of High Demand Collections at UWA. And with sincere apologies to Mitchell and Webb for stealing their joke and picture here. As we start, I'd just like to do acknowledgement of country. Kaya wanju, nalakatajin nija wajak nunga buja, kurayeye border border. And we are learning here on Wajak Noongar land, past, present and future. I'm proud to be on this country and I acknowledge the ancestors and elders past, present and future. And I also pay my respects to any First Nations people attending today across all of ANZREG. And I'd like to give a special thanks to Dr. Richard Barry Wally OAM for the beautiful artwork using in our template here. So are we the baddies? All of us have some form of high demand collection in our libraries. That's what we call it at UWA anyway. Maybe you call it closed reserve or high use or restricted loans or something similar. We use a range of different names, but they are all really the same thing: supervised collections of high-use course materials available for short-term borrowing. We think we're doing the right thing by taking print textbooks and essential teaching items and placing them into a short-term loan collection and restricting loan options in the name of equitable access. But is this actually what students want? Are we helping them access this important material, or are we instead hindering access and dissuading them from using it? We know that the use of print has been declining for quite some time, but have we perhaps been exacerbating this trend by locking the most popular items away under strict borrowing regimes? Have we been so stuck in our ways for so long that we have refused to see reality? Are we the baddies? Well, of course, I'm exaggerating for effect and also so I can tie it into the conference theme, but the idea still has some truth to it. This presentation is going to give you a very quick overview of our high demand review project, which we have only really started officially working on in the last couple of months. But the first seeds of the project were planted back in August 2024. So here's our origin story. The High Demand Review project grew out of a suggestion from one of our dedicated client service officers who was brave enough to ask a difficult and some would say controversial question on our Library Ideas channel on Teams. I pay my respects here to our colleague Paul Marion as he started the discussion that we needed to have by asking, should we even have a high demand collection anymore? And I'd like to quote Paul directly here. Items go into the high demand collections principally at the request of unit coordinators because they expect that a book will be highly sought after and used. But we know from our circulation stats that most books in high demand are not used frequently and many are not used at all. Like all great iconoclastic ideas, this was a shock to the system at first. There were naturally a wide range of initial reactions and comments, but as so often happens in libraries, everyone was willing to engage in constructive discussion and no one dismissed it out of hand. People started thinking about the implications of the idea, and this led to meaningful conversations around the issue. We started with the first big question: what would happen if we dismantled high demand completely? While exploring this question, we realized there was an even more fundamental question that needed to be asked. What do our students and staff actually want from high demand? We knew that this wouldn't be a simple question to answer, as each of these client groups can have similar yet divergent needs. In fact, we guess that in some ways, the wants and needs of each group may be completely contradictory. However, there was general agreement from library staff that this was definitely an idea worth exploring in depth. We decided it was time to revisit some of the underlying assumptions of high demand and its role in teaching and learning within the library. Many of the policies and procedures surrounding high demand had been in place for a very long time, with some minor changes made incrementally to accommodate the rise of ebooks, increased online learning, and changes in print usage, and even some of the lessons from COVID. This was a real opportunity to examine the basic high demand paradigm, opening up new ways to improve our services and refocus on what our users really needed in this space. So some background from the front line. Although Leganto and Alma course reserves are centrally managed in our discovery team, it is actually the student engagement and learning team, the SEAL team, who do all the manual work of gathering items from the shelves to construct and manage the high demand collection for each teaching period. And then they take all of those items out again and put them back where they found them originally. It's a time-consuming and work-intensive cycle. There have even been references to Sisyphus during this work process. The client service officers, CSOs, know that many of these items are never used. They work on the information desks all semester, directly helping students use the high demand collection. And so they are in the best position to understand the questions that students have about high demand access. And they also witness changes to usage trends firsthand without any need to look at analytics. Sadly, many of the lovingly curated high demand items are just sitting on the shelves for the whole teaching period, untouched and lonely. Sure, as we all know, there are always a few very popular items that get all the attention, but maybe that's not enough to justify the current arrangements. There has been plenty of anecdotal evidence from our SEAL team that the high demand collection isn't meeting the needs of our students, especially when it comes to loan periods and loan limits. We currently allow 2 items to be loaned for 3 hours at a time and also offer overnight loans. But we regularly get feedback that students would prefer longer term loans, especially for items that aren't the main textbook for the course. So to quote Paul Marion again, in some ways, putting an item in high demand ends up dissuading people from loaning it out. Rather than being frequently used, some items end up unused. And we know this is true. The challenge is to back this up with evidence and then balance it against the perceived need to provide high demand access to certain essential texts. So, setting up the project. Earlier this year, we committed to the High Demand Review project and started to put together a plan. First, we created a business case for the project and summarised the key outcomes for the library leadership team. Once approved, we then drafted a project plan together as a group, which was then finalised by our project manager, Sonia Baccardo. To quote directly from the executive summary of the plan, the project aims to assess the current usage and user experiences of the high demand collection. Based on the findings, it will recommend and implement improvements to internal processes, including loan configurations and policies, high demand and essential reading ordering practices, use of Leganto tags and Alma course reserves management, communication with students, and communication and training for unit coordinators. Now, this is clearly only a very basic dot point summary of what the project entails, and each of these really is then just the starting point for the products that we'll produce during the process. So once we established the aims of the project and we understood our scope a bit better, we made sure that we had representation from all the affected library sections in the project team, including the SEAL team with both CSOs and librarians, the research and academic engagement team, the acquisitions team, and the discovery team. So what are we actually doing though? We've started work on the major products of the project, even though we're still quite early on. Our main activities at the moment are conducting an environmental scan of other institutions and what they do. And thank you to everyone who's already helped us with this. We've been scouring your websites and also have been in contact with many of you about this. We're using user experience testing with students to understand their needs, including putting up whiteboards with some questions and getting them to indicate their thoughts there, which has been really fascinating. Consulting with unit coordinators about how they use high demand currently. Lots of work on analysing course material usage with ALMA and Leganto analytics. Examining purchasing patterns of print and electronic formats. Reviewing the role of Leganto and ALMA in managing high-use items, and ensuring we have streamlined workflows and documentation. So as we've been working on the initial stages of all these products, we've also been creating a list of the complex and interconnected questions to be considered. One of the factors with these products is, of course, that they're not necessarily all linear. So as we're working on them, they are all influencing each other. And so, we are constantly meeting to make sure that anything we learn from one product is being carried over into the other products. So many questions to be explored, very interconnected questions. In the hope of generating a little bit of discussion during the short time we have allotted for Q&A at the end of my presentation, here are some of the topics we're currently grappling with. Most of these questions are based on the assumption that we will keep some form of short-term loan collection, but we're trying hard to not get too caught up in predicting the final recommendations. And this is one of the difficulties of the project, is we're talking about something that we may end up changing completely. So I've just kind of grouped them into a few of the major themes that have come through, but I'll run through some of the questions, hypotheticals that we've been looking at already. So for example, if we do keep this kind of collection, what name makes the most sense to students and staff? High use is definitely a popular choice. We're not convinced that high demand is actually the best name, so we are definitely looking at what other people are doing. What aspects of this whole process should be driven by students, academic staff, or library staff? What are the various roles? Should we limit the number of items on reading lists going into high demand? And how do we stop essential items disappearing as a euphemism for being stolen if they aren't in high demand? We're looking at what is the optimum length of loans and renewals? What do we actually need limits on the number of loans? Can short-term loans be self-managed through a system of requests and recalls? Could we have different rules for different subject libraries, for example, law materials compared to English literature? How can we use Leganto and ALMA course reserves to our best advantage? Should we be rolling over tags or starting fresh every teaching period? Do we actually need to create new locations and policies in ALMA to accommodate updated loan periods and loan rules? For example, to ensure important books aren't sent out on interlibrary loan during teaching periods. Do we still need to order both ebooks and print books for access and equity reasons? And how should we determine the number of copies required for textbooks and other items? And what do we do when print is the best or only option? For example, when ebooks are not available or too expensive or too restrictive with their licensing and user access? There's still plenty to think about as we work through all the options. So still very early on in the project, as I said, we're continuing through probably till the end of the year, hopefully being able to do something, make some changes and recommendations for next year. But this is kind of I'm up to the Q&A section now. Love to hear any of you doing something similar in this space at the moment, maybe planning something for the near future. We'd like to hear from you either now in the couple of minutes we've got, or definitely if you could get in contact with us, we'd love to talk about it with all our colleagues in ANZREG. So thank you so much for listening, and I will hand over to anyone who has a question.
Thank you very much, Kael. We are seeing some comments in the chat. I don't think I'm seeing any particular questions. There was one about how you manage your high demand collection, but I think you then subsequently covered that in the presentation.
Yeah, not in much detail, but yeah, happy to go through that with anyone if they want to off list. Yeah.
Yes. So there's definitely some great ideas in the chat there. I think we probably won't have time to talk about it much, but everyone do keep dropping your ideas and the ways that you're doing things in the chat. Definitely carry the conversation on via email or via the ANZREG mailing list.
Well, it's
because I think
exciting to see. Sorry, just that last one from Lisa. That's exciting to see that they've got rid of it and changed their loan periods to 2 weeks. So that's what we want to hear. Yeah, I'd love to hear from everyone. Oh, thanks for everyone for their engagement. Sorry, I didn't leave more time for questions.
It's okay. No, it was fantastic to hear from you, and I think it's an ongoing conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening.